Hello and welcome to Lesson 10. Lesson 10 on psychological problems. That's the unit that we are studying at the moment. And in particular, in this lesson, we are looking at what are the treatments for addiction. One treatment that you can have is something called aversion therapy, and it tries to help people stop their addictive behavior by regularly experiencing some form of unpleasantness when carrying out the unwanted behaviour. So, for example, in the event of somebody who has an alcohol problem, they might actually have taken something whereby every time they drink alcohol, it causes them to vomit, and that unpleasant feeling would obviously be the trigger for them not to repeat that unwanted behaviour type, i.e., the drinking again. This results in quite an integral learning to connect the behaviour with the unpleasant feeling rather than with the previously enjoyable feeling. So therefore it's almost like socially conditioning the individual to link an unpleasant feeling or experience with something that was previously gave them joy and happiness. The form of aversion therapy used to treat addicts generally involves the individual taking medication or a substance that causes some kind of unpleasant reaction when drugs, tobacco, or alcohol are used. This is what we call an emetic. An emetic will typically make somebody sick in some way or make them feel unwell, which is a medicine that causes vomiting, as I say. The emetic usually given to alcoholics is it will really make them, as I say, quite. So in the case of George Best, and he did try this, it made him quite violently ill, but he still continued to drink. So it didn't, even whilst on the emetic, so it didn't always have the desired effect. Researchers show that aversion therapy is successful in treating addiction. However, the research also shows that the effects tend to be short term. So whilst you're on the aversion therapy, it's most effective, but it's not long lasting. It involves, if it sits alongside as well, some kind of counselling program or self-management program afterwards, then that is when it becomes more successful. And talking about self-management programs, let's move on to those. These are interventions that give addicts the help they need to manage their substance abuse. They provide peer support, so that can be quite powerful. You'll often be buddied up if you perhaps have a moment of weakness, and you then perhaps may well phone your buddy, and then he or she will be able to give you some really strong pieces of guidance which might divert you from taking the substance that you shouldn't really be taking. They meet in groups, and they typically meet in groups and share their experience. The group may have a psychologist, a therapist, or experienced group member as a facilitator, so that they can really give really good, supportive and good guidance. Self-help groups are groups of people with typically a common problem, so they can really empathise and relate to each other, and they go through that struggle together. And by going through that struggle as a cohesive unit, they are therefore stronger, and they look out for each other. Alcoholics Anonymous, they have a 12-step program, where the 12-step program is obviously has got quite strong religious connotations, and often to do with as understanding of God. You don't have to be religious to follow it, but it certainly is a program that for many people has been successful. We are, however, unsure in terms of how successful groups like Alcoholics Anonymous actually are, by the pure nature, of course, that they are obviously anonymous, but Self-management programs offer a holistic approach to treating some form of addiction or abuse, and they help people deal with their desires to use, as well as looking at other factors involved in addiction. So, for example, it may not just be looking at one particular thing that might be a trigger for a drink. It could be a whole lifestyle change that needs to happen, a diet change, a change of the social group that you kind of hang with. So everything is taken into consideration. Guys, good luck. Oh, should have said, sorry, before I put everything down and it's time out. Do make sure, please, that you go on to Show My Homework, that you have a look download or have a look at the attached document, and on this particular unit, which is how to treat